You grew up in Macon.
I did.
If I remember right, the nephew and grandson of judges.
That's right.
Tell us about growing up here and what effect that's had on you as a judge, as a lawyer, as a man.
Well, I would, first thing I would say is it really having a father, an uncle and a grandfather who practiced law, it really limited your options of where you're going to practice law. So that was sort of the attitude I took from it. But I enjoyed Macon. This is my hometown. This is where I want to be, and I certainly love it. And I got to see a little unique perspective of that. My grandfather wasn't, like I said, was a lawyer. He graduated from here in '49. Griffin Bell, Buck Melton, that class, and he began to practice law. And then he became a probate judge in 1980. His son, he had 4 children. 3 of them were lawyers. My dad was the only one who was not a lawyer, and of all the grandchildren, I'm the only one that is a lawyer. So I guess the lesson is, if you live with a lawyer, you won't be one. I guess. And so, my family reunions were very different than others because the lawyers all gathered up to talk about cases and things that were going on, and so I got that perspective. And then my grandfather became a probate judge when I was 12. Well, in high school, I played football and basketball, and baseball. I didn't play basketball. So during the winter, I had nothing to do after school. So I would drive down to the courthouse and literally hang out with Pop. And that's what we did. We hung out in the courtroom, and I grew up in the courthouse. You remember the probate clerk, Sherry?
Yes.
She raised me. She just raised me. I had much time to be with her, Bernice, when she was down there. So it was a great way to grow up. But it was an interesting way to grow up because what I heard my grandfather talk about, heard my uncles talk about, my aunt talk about was, what do we have to do about, number one, how great it is to be a lawyer, how special it is to be a lawyer, what a privilege it is to be a lawyer. You have to hold that and nurture it and keep it and protect it. You have to help young lawyers. My grandfather did that, and I recall that lesson very well. I remember him distinctly telling me, that I could have done this, but that wouldn't have been fair to the young lawyer. I had to help him do a better job for his client. Wow, doesn't that hurt you? Well, it's not that important. We were fine. It's better for the profession if I help him. So that was the sort of the era and the aura that I grew up in. It was like that. It was a unique way to grow up to get you ready to be a lawyer.
It sure is. Well, you, like I know at least a couple of folks in this room, you went to college at the Citadel.
I did.
And the Citadel is a particular kind of college experience followed by your military service.
That's right.
Tell us about that. What effect has your experience at the Citadel and the military meant to you?
Well, without a doubt, the best decision ever made, without a doubt. Going to the Citadel was great. I was there on had an Army scholarship. That's the only way I could have gone to college, frankly. And so I went there, and a lot of people don't know, but the Citadel is not mandatory. It's not like West Point. You don't have to go in the service. Only about 1/3 of the cadets actually go in the service. But I had to go because I had to pay back the taxpayers who paid for me to go to college. So I had to give them back time in the service, and I did. But it was a great experience. The best thing about it for me was, and I was a year younger, I skipped a grade in school. So when I got to the Citadel, I was only 17. My dad had to sign the papers with the Army because I wasn't able to sign legally sign a contract. But it was a clean break. That was it. Mama wasn't there to help you. Daddy wasn't there to help you. You were on your own, just you and your classmates. And that was a great way to make that transition into independence, if you will. So I enjoyed that. Learned how to budget time, number one. I learned other things, the stuff you learn with your classmates, the bonds that you have are just, it's very difficult to describe that unless you were there. So those are great. Going to the service was a wonderful thing too. And I got to see, I would have never chosen to go to the Republic of Korea under any circumstances, but the Army chose for me to go there, and that was good to see that part of the world. And I loved being in the Army. It's the first time I'd really been in a true cross section of society. from all different angles, all different places, and it was good. You know, like I said, the Citadel, it's a regional school. You don't see people from Los Angeles there. Not a whole lot. People from Spokane don't necessarily go to Charleston for school, but they do join the Army. That's where you get people from the Philippines, and Guam, and Samoa, and different places. So it was great to learn that everybody's not like you, and you don't have all the answers, and just the way you see things aren't necessarily right. There's other ways to look at things, and that was a great experience. It's also wonderful to learn to lead your peers. That's another great thing to learn at the Citadel. Very, very difficult thing to do. It's easy to lead people who are below you or ranked or lower rank, etc. That's easy to do. But when you got to lead your peers, it's very, very different. Very different.
Well, you're not one I have to ask why you went to law school. I think the reason you went to law school is pretty obvious. But I remember you went to the University of Georgia Law School. We'll forgive you for that.
That's all right.
But tell us about your law school experience. These folks are in their second semester of law school. They're still relatively new to the experience.
This is my anger. I think this is probably my angry phase. That was my second semester. I just was like, you know. But I tell you, I wish we had. I didn't take legal profession until my second year. Ray Patterson was my professor. So I was buried, you know, I wish I had a day like this or a class like this. Like I say, Georgia, that is required, but it's only second year. But of course, I love the University of Georgia, being a native Georgian, and it's where I wanted to go to school. My uncles had gone to school there, and I was pleased with it. But my first year, again, it's a very, very different experience. You know, I was 4 years older than most people in the class because I'd been in the Army for 4 years. And I just had a lot of different experiences from that. I mean, literally the month before I'm answering questions in criminal law, you know, I'm briefing generals. I was much more intimidated by generals than law professors, and certainly no disrespect to law professors, but I just didn't get the big deal of, you know, and then again, we had some unique characters up there at the University of Georgia that definitely saw the world differently than I saw the world. They didn't mind telling you why they thought you were wrong, et cetera. But you know, to me, law school was a lot of fun. I've been very fortunate. It came to me very quickly. Not to say it wasn't hard, I didn't work, but I enjoyed myself as well. Maybe that was part of the strategy, was make everybody else down. Bring them down, I got everybody else. Let's get out of the library, let's go here. Just another strategy. But you know, I had a good time with that. I'm best with great friends. The two best friends I have today were both veterans. And you go, 1994 is when I started law school, so the first RIF of the Clinton administration, and I say RIF, reduction in force, that a lot of people were getting out of the service at that point. A lot of them went to law school. 5% of my class were veterans, just getting out. But two guys I met on the very first day, and we've been dear friends ever since. I enjoyed it. And at this point, like I said, it was, you know, February, it's cold, and I just thought, you know, I don't care about property. I don't care about the ruling of perpetuities. I don't want to know about the rule of Shelley's case. I don't want any of that stuff. You know, Louisville's playing the tournament. I don't want to watch the basketball tournament. That's what I was interested in. But it all works out. It'll all be fine.
If the angry phase passes, please tell me that.
Oh yeah, of course it does. Well, you know, and again, what made, I guess, what I didn't understand didn't really matter if I understood. But we took the same courses the whole year. So we just got one test, we got 2 grades. I was like, man, that's, you know, it's a lot to put on. I got one shot for 1 year to take, you know, and then that is when I began to develop my idea of that some aspects of law school are just silly, just silly. And for example, this is my 20th year of practicing law. Nobody has ever rushed up to me and given me this most bizarre set of facts and said, you can't look at any books, And you got 3 hours to write your answer. Right. Never happened. Not once has that ever happened to me. I'm waiting, and the day it does, I will be prepared. Law school is going to make me prepared for that.
Well, there is that little bar exam in between when they got to get ready for it.
That is true. Like, again, thank God, nobody's ever rushed up to me and asked me, you know, some tax code section so-and-so and said your ability to make a living and care for your future family is on the line.
Now, do I remember correctly, you went straight from University of Georgia back to Macon
I did.
to go to Selling Milk?
I did.
And you were there about 9 years, if I remember
That's
right. Tell us a little bit about that experience. I mean, your experience as a lawyer, as I remember it, was a little unusual in that you were much more of a generalist than most lawyers are these days. So talk to us about your practice and what that was like.
Well, I knew I was going to come back to Macon, and I knew I was going to practice law here in Macon somewhere. It's where my family was and where I was from, and wanted to do that. And it's just the way it is in life. My dad happened to know somebody at Selling Mountain, and he knew Doy Green, who Doy is dead now, but I think Doy knew everybody in the Middle Georgia greater metro area. So I went to meet with those guys and asked around. Did a good law firm. They had a great reputation. It's the only place I ever worked, and it just hit it off and enjoyed them. And I was really fortunate at that time. Our law firm we were a major player at that point. We represented the Telegraph, we represented the hospital, we represented Purina, we had the hospital authority, the industrial authority. Our name partner was a former mayor, so we had politics. It was a great place to be, and it was incredible as a young lawyer and as a law clerk to be there, just to be able to walk around the hall and to see these great lawyers who had done all these cases and to just be with them. I learned far more clerking than you did in law school. There's no question about that. And then you learn the stuff that you don't learn in law school, like how to file a complaint. Where is the clerk's office and who you give it to? The little things that will trip you up, etc. And so then I just stayed there, but I really was a generalist. I would describe myself as the utility infielder, the sixth man. Generally, anything that nobody had ever heard of or that was really messed up landed on my desk. And I was glad for that, because what my fear was that I was going to become I got to work at some law firm, and you're gonna handle reinsurance on fires in public buildings, or it's just something crazy. That's all you do. So I wanted to do something different. You did a lot of stuff every day, and I tried my best to do that. And a lot of it was also, I'll tell you, as a young associate, you'll see how when you get into the business of law and how it works. You got to be smart. You got to be careful of who you put, whose trailer you hitch on to. And a lot of it's luck, a lot of it's randomness. When you go to some of these big law firms, they just, you're in bond finance, and you're in litigation, you're in products, and you're in reinsurance or whatever. But I didn't want to just get in a narrow, tiny field. So, and our law firm was unique in that we had half plaintiffs lawyers and half corporate lawyers. And so I would float between the two and make sure that I didn't get only on the plaintiff's track or only on the corporate track, and did a little bit of both. It worked out very well.
It happens to be great training to be a judge.
It really does. It helped out great.
The students in this class are so inundated with dilemmas and ethics and professionalism. They're probably going to, quick around thinking they're going to see them every day around every corner. And of course, I know that's not true,
That's right.
but it does happen. But did you have any experiences in those 9 years practicing lawmaking that you would describe as an issue of ethics and professionalism?
Well, I certainly had a couple. I remember distinctly representing a local businessman. It was a Title VII, some sort of Title VII case.
You may tell them what that is.
The sexual discrimination, the Title VII. I think it was a pregnancy discrimination case. We represented the employer. The former employee had alleged that our client had fired her because that she was pregnant or during maternity leave, clearly stuff you can't do, but anyway. But it was one of those ideas, one of those days though, that we did find the smoking gun. I mean, we're going through boxes and all of a sudden our client has sworn on his children, no, I would never do that, never did that. Well, here's the letter that offers the new person the job while she's on maternity. I mean, we're done. This is it. We are done. And so I remember saying, going to John Drawn, and I said, John, this is not good. I don't know how we lawyer around this. And but it was one of those things that John said, well, you know what? Send it to them. Send it to them.
Send it to the other side.
Yeah, give it to them. They asked for it. They asked for it. It's responsive. Give it to them. It's not our fault. We didn't write the letter. We'll do the best we can with it. But what we're not going to do is not tell them about it and shred it, etc. And and you could have. Nobody would have ever known on that. And that's also those kind of time. And our firm was a little bit different too. We had a meeting every Friday morning. But if we had these kind of issues, our lawyers would talk about it, especially the older lawyers. And I can remember Buck Melton, who was graduated here, former mayor of Macon, but he said, no client's worth those 6 numbers. And he was talking about the 6 numbers to your bar number. He said, no client's ever worth those 6 numbers. No matter what numbers they give us, they ain't worth these 6. And that's a good point. But Macon it's just a great place to practice law. We just don't have those type of things.
Can I take you back for just a minute to
Sure.
this production of this document? Because you used a word that I think is really important for the students to hear, and that is, you said no one would ever know. And that's almost certainly true then,
Absolutely.
these days with computers and everything. But there are times in practice where you could do something you're not supposed to do, and no one would ever know.
Absolutely true.
So I'll ask you the question I asked the students, necessarily. Why do it? I mean, why don't you just go ahead and help the client when no one will ever know?
Well, I think that there's 2 reasons. One is purely a personal reason. I will know, and I got to sleep, and I want to sleep well above everything else. I want to sleep well, so I got to live with me, and I don't know that it's worth that if I got that. The second thing is a more practical reason is if the client knows that you've done that for them, now basically the client owns you. And now that client would rightfully expect you to do every single thing that they want, ethical or not, whatever it takes, because they got you, as you know, they can still go complain to the state bar, and the state bar will eat its young on something like that. That's just a practical reason, not nearly the most, to me the most important reason is you took an oath and you owe it to the profession, you owe it to you, to your family, and to your name. And that one act, would it kill your career? Probably not, but it would certainly ruin a reputation for a very, very long time.
If anybody found out.
It would, yeah, that's right. You'd have a little asterisk by your name. It'd be like Barry Bonds.
I think you described what you liked most about the practice was the variety of it. Was there anything about practicing in private practice you didn't like?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, let me finish the question.
Sure.
What would that be?
Well, I think, I don't know of a single lawyer that gets up in the morning and says, well, I cannot wait to fill out timesheets. This is going to be a lot of fun today. I'm going to do a superb job of accounting for my time in tenths of hours. So no, I didn't like that. But the business of law is not necessarily fun. When you're in a partnership, also, this is a free piece of advice here. The only fair partnership is a sole proprietorship. That's for sure. Life is not fair. Partnerships aren't fair. But it's sort of like a marriage, and over time, you hope it evens out. There are going to be times where you make more money than you should, and you make less money than you should. But over time, it should work out. So, but the practice of law, the boring practicalities of it, when you have to wrestle with a client to pay a bill, and the whole time you're wrestling with him to pay the bill, you're thinking, I just lost a half hour of time that I could have made, now I'm losing twice, or this person's assistant has a greater desk than this person's assistant, and that's not fair, and why is this, you're overdrawing your expense account. That kind of stuff you just don't like, but that's the reality of it. Nobody likes paying an accountant to make the K-1s at the end of the year, but you got to do that kind of stuff. So, that's the kind of stuff. You don't get to go to court every single day. Answering discovery in the middle of the night is not particularly fun on that day, but there are other great things that make up for it. Yeah.
Well, you decided at a fairly young age to run for the bench, and most judges in Georgia become judges first by appointment. You didn't. You ran for an open seat.
Right.
What led you to that?
Well, I knew I wanted to be a judge.
All along?
Yeah. That was sort of part of the life plan for me. I knew I wanted to do that. And that was not probably my opportune time. But Judge Wilcox, who was the chief judge at the time, was retiring, and he was going to serve his term out. And I just got lucky on that. So it was one of those times where this may never happen again. You got to make a decision. What are you going to do? Yes or no? Is it the optimal time? Maybe not. But there probably wasn't an optimal time. There is no optimal time to do something like that. I've been very active in politics up until then, and so I thought I could figure out how to do this, and it helped a lot of other people and made a lot of contacts, and so it was just one of those things that it's now or never. You just got to make a decision, and so I literally bet the farm because the worst thing you can do for a law practice is run for judge. That is the absolute worst thing you can do for a law practice in the moment, in the short term, because nobody will sign up to have you as their lawyer if they think you're going to be a judge in 6 months. Nobody wants to do that. It may help you also. It may help you on the back end, but in the middle of time, it is not helpful. So we bet the farm, and it worked out. It worked out good for us. And you also, again, we talk about luck, though. You got to go back to the political climate 10 years ago. A lot of judges who were getting to retirement age were not allowing the governor to have the appointments that this governor has, and that I certainly benefited from that. Now, I mean, our governor today has appointed 10 out of 15 appellate judges. He will have 5 out of 9 Supreme Court justices and over 100 Superior Court judges. He's literally appointed 1/2 of the bench, which is, it'll never happen again. But anyway, 10 years ago, 2 terms ago, that was not the case. You had more contested elections than you'd ever had because of open seats. And so I take advantage of that.
Well, judicial elections in Georgia are nonpartisan.
They are.
But yours was very much contested. What was it like to run for office, but particularly to run for office as a judge, because you are constrained in what you can say?
Bizarre is what it was. It was very, very bizarre because I was used to helping congressional candidates, local candidates, and you had themes and this and that. But you're right. The Code of Judicial Conduct really limits what you can say and what you can do on that. But I will say this, and you'll probably get to it, but I was spared what some of these candidates are spared. There were 5 people in my race, and every single person acted like a perfect lady and a perfect gentleman. It was the most model professional race that I've ever seen, and I was just fortunate to be a part of it. And that's a tribute to the candidates. There just wasn't nastiness going on. I can tell you points around the other circuits around the state where it was just awful, absolutely awful. And there's a Supreme Court race we had in 2002 that was just awful on that. But it is hard campaigning for judge. You can't say, I'll rule for you. You can't do that. Or, hey, I really need a lot of money, and I'll be your judge. You can't really do that. So it's just a unique animal. And really, you got to go. You also have to run a campaign by surrogacy. You got to have other people out there saying, he's my lawyer, and I know him, and I trust him, and he's okay, he'll do the right thing. And a lot of times you just gotta say, this is the way I see the law, this is the way my philosophy, this is the way I'll interpret the law, and you probably won't like a lot of it, but I'm gonna do the very best I can. And that's about all we can do, but judicial election is strange, but thank God it's not like our sister states who have partisan judicial elections. Those are awful, just awful.
Well, in the end, you ended up with a runoff with Ed Ennis,
Yeah.
which to me was the model for the way judicial candidates should conduct themselves.
He's a great man, there's no question. He is a great man, and we've become very good friends. We were friends during the whole thing. We were never ugly to each other. And I, you know, he was an Air Force Academy graduate, colonel, a retired colonel in the Air Force. And especially in the runoff, it was just me and Ed. Like you say, never a crossword. We went to a lot of things together. You know, my pitch, and I'm sure his was probably similar, the same, to a lot of folks was, we're all going to be fine. We're all going to be fine. You know, I'd like for you to pick me, but if you pick Ed, you're going to make a great choice for a judge. And so that was easy, and he made that easy. He could have made that very, very difficult, but he did not. And that's a testament to him and his family and his example. And it's what you would expect. I mean, the guy's former U.S. attorney and Air Force Academy graduate and Colonel in the Air Force is exactly what you would expect. That's how he would act. But I really wish more campaigns were like that. I know the candidates do.
Well, and of course, the community got the best of both worlds, because within a fairly short time, the governor appointed Ed Ennis.
1 year. That's exactly right.
And established to fill a vacancy.
That's right. He's chief judge today. Yeah, that's exactly right. So.
Well, you had 10 years on the Superior Court. They haven't had a lot of exposure to what the Superior Court does, but of course, felonies, divorces, civil cases, and so on. What did you like about being a Superior Court judge?
There's not a lot I didn't like, I can tell you. I would say the best thing I like about being a judge, what I liked about being a lawyer, is I got to do something generally different every day, and I got to see a lot of different people. And that's the best thing about being a judge. You get to see humanity, the raw, just humanity.
Now, at the trial court level,
yes.
You're not going to see any raw humanity in the Court of Appeals.
No, not a whole lot. Not a whole lot.
At the trial court.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Superior Court. The two things, I tell it the same thing, the two things I learned the most about being on the trial court bench were people are stupider than I ever thought they could be, and they're meaner than I ever thought they could be. That is the God honest truth. They really are. And what humans do to each other is just shocking to me.
Do you have a particular case in mind when you say that?
I do. Well, I can go through a number of divorce cases, and what people do to each other in divorces are incredible. What they do to their children is sad in divorces. Sometimes unintended, sometimes intended. Very, very sad. But probably the most striking example of whatever the idea of what we do to each other was my very first week. This is January 2007, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea where anything is. I'm sort of feeling my way around. But we have in the Superior Court one of the very few times that you can have an ex parte hearing is in a family violence situation or a temporary protective order.
Meaning only one side is represented.
Correct, right. So you can go to a judge, tell just your side, and the judge can make a decision. And there's a good reason for that. You know, obviously, if a woman is being beaten up, she really doesn't need to give notice to the other side, because she'll probably get a pretty good beating that night if you make her do that. So we let you come in, and then we can serve the other side, the other party, get that person out of the house, make them stay away, and sort of stabilize the situation. And there's a local nonprofit here in town that helps people in domestic violence situations do that. But the lady had come to see me, and she was telling me her story, and her story was that she was cooking dinner for her and her son. Her boyfriend, who lived with them, had called her, and she didn't answer the phone quick enough. So he got home, he was mad that he didn't answer the phone quick enough. She was on the phone with her sister. He beeped in, and she didn't click over or whatever. They don't even know what click over means. But anyway, she didn't take the call in time. He got mad. She was frying chicken. He grabs the pot of grease and he throws it, but he misses her son, sort of misses her, and then he holds her down and he pours Drano and all kind of chemicals down her back. And so she's an African-American woman, but he literally, it burned her, chemically burned her back. And there's no way to say it, but it put a white stripe down the middle of her back, and he made her a huge skunk. That's the only way to describe it. That was my first week, and I just thought, Jesus, Lord God, what have I gotten into? How could you do that to someone? But poor woman just scarred her terribly. For life. Not only physically, certainly emotionally, etc. But those are just, we don't see that at the Citadel. I didn't see that in Macon, Georgia. You don't see that, but that's real life. That's a dime a dozen, a story a dime a dozen that goes on out there. And you could go on and on. It'd be very depressing. We could go on and tell you stuff.
Go ahead.
But that was certainly that drove it home that this is serious business. And this is real. This is absolutely real. Good news is she's fine today.
Well, that's you see a lot of horrible, surprising things as a judge. A lot of students in here eventually will work for judges, as you know, through our program, and they're going to have the same kind of surprise that you had.
Right.
At what goes on out there. Was there a particular case or moment or person at the other extreme where you thought, this is just such a wonderful thing to see and be a part of?
Probably on the other side are just as many, if not more. But what I can tell you, some of those cases are in Veterans Court, which is one of the things I started with Veterans Court. And one of the things y'all will learn is our governor has really made a big push in criminal justice reform, and it was very well needed. Don't get me wrong; it's very well needed. And we have more work to do in that area, but the reforms has really truly made Georgia a leader in the country. And one of the things we do is accountability courts, and the idea is that if you're addicted to drugs, or if you have a substance abuse or a mental disorder, it does you very little good for us to put you in jail. It takes away your home, it takes away your family, it takes away your support system, and then we turn you out with zero property, nothing in this world, and we expect you to do right again. And it's just not going to work. It hasn't worked in 40 years, and it's not going to work today. So we have some accountability courts now where the idea is we're not going to let you get off scot-free. You'll pay for what you did. But if we can get to the root of the problem, if we can treat the root of the issue, then perhaps you won't be back in the criminal justice system. And veterans are a unique population, unique issues to them. So we started a Veterans Court. But on that side, when you see a guy who comes out of prison, he then goes into Veterans Court, he's been arrested 31 times, addicted to drugs, probation officers are fighting me, saying, this guy will never make it. He'll never make it. I've been supervising him since he was 18. And for the last 15 years, we know him, he'll never make it. And then next week, he'll graduate, he's our rock star, and he's the best we've ever had, and he's cleaned his life up. He's never failed a drug test in 18 months. He's gotten a home. He volunteers at his church to help other veterans. A life has truly been transformed. Those are the great days. You see something like that. It is. Or you see a guy that you take a chance on. I can tell you a guy right now, his name is Michael Gray. He was the cadet commander at Central High School for the JROTC. Sharp kid, absolutely sharp kid. Went into the Macon Mall, and on Sunday mornings, they let the mall open so people could walk in the air conditioning instead of outside in the hot. They're running from Central High School to Macon Mall. It's just unbelievable what they're doing that. He gets in the Macon Mall, he sees a sunglass kiosk, he decides he wants a pair of sunglasses, he takes a pair of sunglasses. Well, what he doesn't understand, because he's not a law student, is he may think that's just petty shoplifting. Yeah, it's true. But because you stepped inside of a building and you petty shoplifted, now you're a burglar, and now you went from 12 months max to 1 to 20 years in prison. Same act, you just did it inside instead of outside. Now it's a major felony. There's a problem. And he forgets, the mall people aren't stupid. They got cameras somewhere. So it's a very easy case. But the kid had a chance to go to the Marine Corps. He had a scholarship. He was just a great kid. But he comes to court, and I asked him, why would you do that? Why would you do that? And he gave me probably one of the top 5 best answers I've ever heard in court. He said, Judge, I wanted me to have those sunglasses more than I wanted they to have them. I said, you know what, now I can deal with it. That's honesty. That I can deal with. So I said, and he said, I forgot what the prosecution wanted. Something, I think they wanted me to go to prison for a year and 10 years in probation. I don't know. His dad had flown in from Afghanistan. His poor father is crying, saying, this is my fault. If I hadn't been in Afghanistan, then I would have been there to help him out. And I'm trying to say, sir, you know, you're fighting for our country. You're good. Thank you for what you're doing. Please don't feel any guilt over this. You know, your son made a stupid decision, this and that. But you could just see good family, good people. So I said to him, I'm going to give you 6 months probation, 30 days in jail, but I told him, I said, you know, and of course the district attorney's just spinning around, their mind's going color wheel at this point. But I said, you know, if you stick me, on this, I will go last. I do get to talk last. And I said, now if you do your time, you're out of here, and you're a first offender, so this is gone off your record. You go to the Marine Corps, you'll be done, et cetera, et cetera. And the guy's doing great. So those are the days that make all the bad stuff bad. You know, you take a chance on somebody, and there's plenty of people I've taken chances on that they stuck it to me, and that's okay. That's all right. But there's some who don't. So those are good days. That makes it worth it.
Well, you have very recently taken office in the Court of Appeals.
Yeah.
Why the switch?
You know, that's really, it's hard to quantify why the switch of that. 10 years on the Supreme Court bench is a long time. It is a long time. But I was looking for just a different opportunity in a different part of the law. Again, sort of that need to keep doing different things and see different people. I thought it would be fun and interesting to see it from the other side, and it has been. It has been. I've only been there a month. Everybody asks, how's it going? I said, I don't even know what I'm doing. What are you talking about? My name's still on the door, so I'm in great shape. But, you know, it's impossible to compare. The difference of the work is so just fundamentally different than everything else. It is, in case you don't know, there are 15 judges on the Court of Appeals, and that covers the state. And they sit in 5 3-judge panels. So it's very, very different. As a Supreme Court judge, I just made a decision, and that was it. Right or wrong, that was it. But now I got to go get votes. I got to get 2 other judges to agree with me, or at least one other judge to agree with me. And if there's a dissent, then I got to go get 4, because it moves from 1 panel to 3 panels if it's a 2-to-1 decision. So I got to go lobby for votes now, and that is fun. That I enjoy very, very much. You have to engage with your colleagues have to engage with you, and that part of it is very, very fun. But it's also very different by knowing that, or I guess by realizing that, I'll just go make a decision. No, Judge, you can't make a decision. You got to get Judge Diller to help you, or you got to get Judge Ray. You got to get them signed on. So some things are one-judge decisions, but most things are not. You still got to go get votes on this. That's different. Obviously, never going to court is different, or seeing witnesses and people And the other one is just very personal. Nobody ever hangs out with you anymore. Nobody ever comes by just to see how you're doing or to drink coffee, because you can't physically get in the Judicial Building in Atlanta. It's next to the Capitol, and there's so much security and stuff. Nobody drops in on this. So that's been unique and different. And,
It's lonely at the top.
well, I don't know about that, but I enjoyed, you know, I mean, I'm a people person. I'm an extrovert. I want people around me, and that was another hard transition to go to the bench. I went from a 20-person law firm, and I thought, well, I'll just be in a 5-person law firm now, and because there were 5 Superior Court judges in the circuit, but that's not true. It's 5 one-person law firms is what it is, and if you see your colleagues, you're very fortunate because everybody's too busy. In the Court of Appeals, that's different. You know, there's only one courtroom, so it's not like everybody's in court at the same time. And again, you're forced to go get votes and engage. And you could just write memos back and forth, but the court's getting so much younger. Our generation doesn't do that like the generation ahead of us does. You know, we don't make appointments to go see you at 2 o'clock on Thursday to talk about case X. No. I'll text you about it. There's no telling what the next generation will be like.
I have lots of questions, but I'm going to see in just a minute what questions the students have. Everybody that comes to see us, I give them one opportunity before the students ask questions, just to see if there's any advice you want to give them. Right? I mean, anything you wish you would know when you were in your angry phase.
Well, the innocent side. I'll tell you the best piece of advice I can give you. Sort of a couple pieces. One is get to know your classmates. Get to know every single person as well as you can get to know them, because this is your source of business. This is how you're going to make a living. You're all going to fan out across the Southeast and across the country, and you might as well know everybody else and have a couple hundred referral sources. You'll start out very, very well. And the majority of you will likely stay in Georgia, and if you've got that relationship and you get a friendship, it's very difficult to be mean to your friends. Some people can accomplish that, so that'd be the one thing that I would say. And the second thing I would say is just start out today understanding and playing long ball, thinking about your professional reputation. What do you want it to be, and how is it going to be? You can lose it in a second. You can absolutely lose it. No friend is worth those bar numbers. No client is worth those bar numbers. It's just not worth it. You know, and so that's the best advice I can give.
Well, what questions do you have for the judge? Yes, sir.
So you mentioned before
I can see you're good.
you mentioned before, you know, that you worked in private practice. And
Yeah.
The question I was curious about asking was, for some of us that are interested in pursuing private defense work, and you know, as you said as well, you've handled quite a variety of cases. Some of which have been, to a degree, disturbing. For some of us that want to enter that kind of practice, what advice would you have for us handling those kind of, I guess,
Criminal defense?
moral dilemmas or things that, you know, you run into and you sit back and you think, man, I can't believe I'm doing this kind of defense work.
Well, I think the only way I did a lot of criminal defense too, but I can tell you this. I guess, number one, get a thick skin. You're going to have that. People that don't appreciate the Constitution, that don't appreciate the law, that don't appreciate a civil society will make fun of you for no reason. They'll denigrate you for no reason. They'll take a moral high ground that they don't have for that. If we believe that everyone deserves a defense, then we ought to believe that everyone deserves a defense. That's the way I believe. Now, because I defend you, we have this idea in this country that all of a sudden I endorse you. That's not true at all. That's just not true at all. There are a lot of lawyers around this country, around this state, around this town who probably hate their clients, hate their guts. But it's not about that client, it's about the bigger piece of this. So, yes, you know, I've defended a person to a jury trial accused of rape. Does that mean I endorse rape? No, of course not, it doesn't. It means that my job was to defend my client. That's what I did. I accused someone of killing a child. Does that mean I think we ought to kill children? Of course not, it doesn't mean that. It means that they're entitled to a defense. And by the way, the case was dropped. But for a lawyer, this woman goes to prison for the rest of her life when she didn't do it. She just didn't do it. Those things happen, people. If you don't believe that, if you believe everybody charged or arrested for a crime is guilty, you got a rude awakening. That is not true, absolutely not true. So, number one, you got to be prepared for that mentally. And my advice to you in advance would be react to that criticism graciously, not bitterly. Because the more bitter you become and the more rabid you are and just in your face about your defense of your defense, you just reinforce the stereotype that they're attacking you for having on that. So be gracious about it. Be patient about it. But those things are going to come. And the second thing I would tell you to do is, you know, but you have to be able to compartmentalize in your mind, I'm doing this from 8 to 5 or whatever. This is my professional job. This is my personal life. Again, to me, it's the same idea of a person who doesn't drink at all, but they defend Budweiser. That's not a contradictory of term. It's just separate as all this. So you got to be able to separate that. Don't take that on your. Don't take your frustration out on your family or anything else. You're just going to have to find another way to do that. But second of all, be the very best lawyer you can be. Be the very best lawyer you can be. You can be honest. You can be trustworthy. You know, I can tell you now, one of my good friends in this world is Frank Hogue. Frank Hogue defends a lot of. That's all he does is criminal defense.
He'll be here Monday with Laura.
Well, if I were in trouble, I'd call Frank and Laura. I can tell you that. But I've also handled a lot of cases where Frank and Laura is the judge. Frank and Laura have never once lied to me under any circumstances, etc. They've never lied. And there's not a judge in this state that would tell you that that the Hogues aren't welcome in their courtroom, because they are. Because they're honest, they're trustworthy. And if you're a prosecutor, you better bring your A game. You better bring your A+ game. And I think that's the reputation you want to have. But there is absolutely nothing wrong with being a criminal defense lawyer. It is. And the way I thought about it was, I referred to myself as a law enforcement officer. My job is to enforce the Constitution. All you got to do is do it right, people. Just do it right. Is all we got to do on that. So that's my advice on that.
Other questions you have? Yes, sir.
On the judge's end, have you ever had a case where it was just a tough decision that you had to make? And if so, what like reasoning did you use to get to that point?
You know, I guess a lot of it depends, but that was much more the rule than the exception. I mean, there are plenty of days where you worry about it, and a couple of things. Judge Lamar Sizemore told me to agonize about your decision before you make it, not after. And I've always tried to do that. I mean, I've done a pretty good job of letting it go once it's done. That's just it. It's over. But I think you use a variety of reasons. I mean, there's some tools the law gives you. You know, if you're construing a contract, we've got rules of construction. If you're construing a statute, we've got rules of construction. But when it comes time to sentence someone, and you got a range of 1 to 20 years, that's a lot of discretion on that. And there are a lot of things that complicate that. But you know, a lot of it is just guts. It's just your gut instinct or seeing things before, or seeing people before. You know, and I think the best skill that a great judge could have is to identify unintended consequences and plan for those. And I realize that's an oxymoron, but that if you can do that, and again, just over time, the more you've done it, you would understand how the system works. You understand the quirks of the system. So if I say these certain words, the Department of Corrections will take it like this, but if I say it a different way, it takes it like that. And sometimes you got to learn those the hard way of that. But a lot of times it's just, you know, I may talk to other judges. Sometimes I don't have any choice. I don't have any time. I have time to do nothing. I got to make a decision right now. I can't stop what I'm doing and ponder this. I just got to make a decision. Very much like, you know, I officiate college football, so it's kind of like being on the field in an instant replay. You know, the guys on the field get one shot, one angle, that's it. You know, now I'm in the judicial replay booth, so I can play it back over and over again and think about it sometimes like that. But there's no right way to do it. There's no wrong way to do it. A lot of times, sometimes I would ask my court reporter and just say, "This is what I'm thinking about doing." I'm telling you, court reporters are people. I'd ask her a lot of times, "You get the same vibe I am? Is this guy just awful? Is this woman just crazy? Is she just crazy?" And she would say, "Yeah, she's crazy." Snakes in her head, she's crazy. So, you know, there's no real rhyme way. But a lot of it is just gut instinct. That's a lot of it.
We have time for one more. Yes, sir.
You talked about the importance of compartmentalizing work and home, and that's really hard to do.
It is.
Do you have any advice on how to do that?
Practice. No, I mean, there's just no. I mean, it just takes discipline to where you're going to decide. You know, you got to look at it a little different way. You know, my wife has told me 1,000 times, "I don't know who you think you are, but you're not a judge in this house." That'll get you back normal. You know, my kids will say the same thing. "Dad, you're going to judge on me." You know. So that helps. But a lot of times you just got to decide, you know, it's not fair to my family because I chose this profession. They didn't. And by the way, your family's going to suffer. If you're a judge, your family's going to suffer on that to a certain degree because of just some of the scrutiny or the criticism that will come with the job. So, you know, they're already bearing part of your burden that they didn't ask for. But I just try to, you know, really just to remind myself that they didn't sign up for this, and there's no need to go home and kick the dog. She didn't do anything. You know, my kids don't need to be snapped at because I'm stressed out because of what I'm doing at work. But over time, if you don't do that, you just become so miserable. Nobody will want to be with you anyway, and you won't want to be with yourself. You'll start doing that. That's what I think.
Well, the judge has time after we adjourn to chat if you want to come up and meet him personally, but we are out of time as a group, so join me in thanking Judge Tripp.